Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi channel this afternoon. My name is Dr. Fundi Lenyati. I am the host of this channel. Today, we are just going to have sort of an open kind of show. We are just going to discuss anything relating to COVID-19 disease. Last week, we had our first Ask Dr. Fundi, and there was a special focus on COVID-19 vaccines. But today, we are basically broadening, the discussion to include anything that, one would like to know. Obviously, the show is intended for people who are non-medical, because I assume that my colleagues who are medical have got access to much deeper information, and journals on some of the issues that we're talking about. So the show is really intended for people who are non-medical. However, in some areas, there could be things that somebody who's medical may actually be able to benefit. So I just thought I needed to clear that out. I will try to the best of my ability to answer the questions that are posed by the people via Facebook, via YouTube, or even via the WhatsApp number 083 391 4106. 083 391 4106. The intention really of having this chat is just to try and address some of the confusion that is out there a lot in the social media. There's a lot of claims about this and that. And sometimes when I engage with people, then they say, you guys who are medical people, you should be, speaking more about these things because we are hearing from one side. We're not hearing enough from you. And so, some of the issues that we read about, they appear very convincing. And so, if you're not there, there's a vacuum, you are not there, you are not helping us to understand issues. It is then easy for us to believe whatever, that seems, to be credible, on the social media streets. So this is my little attempt to try and share whatever information that I have that I've got from credible sources, which is WHO, CDC, published research articles, and sources like, the National Department of Health, National Institute of Communicable Diseases. So it is that kind of information that I will share here. If I don't have an answer to a particular question, I will say I don't have an answer to this one. And I will take note, I will go and look for an answer, and I will revert to the person who asked the question. We will take that kind of information. So I hope we are all in the same wavelength about the purpose of this Ask Dr. Fundi. And yeah, one of the things I mentioned, though, was that there is currently a debate around a particular drug that's licensed for use in South Africa for animals, a drug called Ivermectin. So that's just another thing that I put in if there are people who just want some clarity around what that issue is. But in preparation for this discussion, Nwabisa, who is my colleague, has prepared some questions just to get the discussions going. So in between, we will then look on the various platforms, YouTube, Facebook, if there are any questions that have been posed, and I will try and answer. This is supposed to take 60 minutes. That is from now up until around 5 o'clock. If we extend it, it will go up to 5:30. But certainly at 5:30, we will have to end. There's a big match today, Manchester United and Liverpool. And I'm a Manchester United supporter. So I need to get my mind right and be able to go and watch that match come 6:30 this early evening. Nwabisa, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Right. So obviously, you prepared some questions. So I'll allow you to shoot. And then let's keep our eyes also on what's coming through via, the channel from YouTube, from Facebook, and also from WhatsApp.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Doc. So the first question is, yesterday morning, newspapers ran articles about a list of doctors who are petitioning the president to use his powers to ensure emergency licensing of the Ivermectin drug. So the question is, what is the Ivermectin drug?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think it's good to start, there. Well, ivermectin is actually a very, very good drug. It is a drug that falls under the family of drugs that we call antihelmintics, but basically drugs that are used to treat people who have got worms. There are different types of diseases that are caused by worms, roundworms, earthworm, whatever. So, but basically different, types of worms. So this drug is a drug that's very, very good in treating worms. It is licensed in South Africa to be used to treat worms in animals. But in a place like the US, the FDA has licensed this drug to be used largely in animals to treat, worm conditions, but also there is also some limited licensing of this drug to be used to treat some worm conditions that may be difficult to treat with the common drugs that we have amongst human beings. So in the US, it's used to treat animals largely, and in a limited way, specific conditions that have to do with worm diseases in human beings. So in South Africa, it's really used for treating animals that have got worm diseases.
Yeah. So the second question, Doc, is why are the doctors petitioning the president when there's a regulatory authority called South African Health Products Regulatory Authority?
All right. I think we also need to understand that, for any medicine that is used in this country, for human beings, that, or that those medicines or that medicine, the people who produce that medicine, that is the pharmaceutical company that produces that medicine, after they've done their studies, at the lab, and then also they've conducted human trials, looking for issues of safety, and then also looking at issues of effectiveness. Then once they are, convinced by the research, outcomes that the drug is safe and the drug is effective to treat a particular condition, they're supposed to then approach regulatory authorities with all the evidence that they have to say, this is our drug. This drug, its purpose is to treat this type of condition. We have done these studies that prove safety and that prove effectiveness. And then the regulatory authorities then look at all that evidence. In the US is the FDA. In South Africa is SAHPRA, South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. So they get that evidence, go through the evidence, convince themselves that indeed these people have followed the right scientific research processes, to establish the safety and the effectiveness of that particular drug. So in South Africa, SAHPRA is that regulatory authority. It used to be called Medicine Control Council, but it has now been changed to SAHPRA. So that is the role of SAHPRA. Now, SAHPRA is an independent body. Yes, it falls with, it reports to the Department of Health, but it's an independent body. It's supposed to review evidence, from whichever company that is bringing in new medicines or any health products, and then come to an independent decision about whether they should license that, treatment or that medicine or not, and what guidelines in terms of dosages and things like that. So when doctors then are approaching the president to actually prevail over the regulatory authority to authorize this type of medication, in a way, they are jumping the gun, all right? Because it is SAHPRA that is supposed to actually answer the question, is this drug, safe and effective to be used in humans? But maybe let me also say, already a few weeks ago, SAHPRA came out with a statement, and I'm just going to summarize what they said. Basically, they are acknowledging that there are some small studies that have been done throughout the world, to look at the use of this drug amongst patients with COVID-19. The results of the various studies that have been done, I would say they have had mixed outcomes. In some situations, there's been some benefit that has been seen, but nothing, very strong. But in some instances, it has not shown any benefit in terms of effectiveness. So there is a mix of, outcomes from the different studies. So SAHPRA, after reviewing whatever evidence that was put before them, they were of the view that the studies that have been done elsewhere around the effectiveness and safety of this drug have not been convincing. And so because they were of the view that the studies were not convincing, they were done in smaller, research populations, they felt that at this point, they are not in a position to license this drug to be used in human beings for COVID-19. They said they would like to see more bigger studies and more data coming out to actually demonstrate the benefits, of this drug in terms of effectiveness or issues of safety. So at this moment, they have come out very clear to say, not now. The information is still inconclusive, and the issues of safety have not been clarified, properly. And so it is the reason why they are going to the president, because they are not necessarily happy with the answer that they got from the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority.
All right, Doc. So the other question is, the National Minister of Health, Zweli Mkhize, has advisory committee on various issues of COVID-19, including treatment and so on. So what is their stand on the Ivermectin drug?
So you are asking the question about what? Can you just repeat your question, please?
All right. So the National Minister of Health, Zweli Mkhize, has the advisory committee on various issues of COVID-19, including treatment and so on. So what is their stand on the Ivermectin drug?
The stand of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on
yes,
this drug.
on this drug, yes.
All right. You are right. The minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, has the Ministerial Advisory Committee that advises him on various aspects of COVID-19. Now, even on this issue of ivermectin, there actually is a memo from the Department of Health, written the 7th of January 2021. It was addressed to the Honorable Dr. ZL Mkhize, Minister of Health, from the Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19, and the subject was ivermectin for the treatment of COVID-19. And the background in that, memo was that the use of ivermectin for treatment or prevention of COVID-19 has generated significant global interest. The use of this repurposed medicine is being heavily promoted via social media. However, given the limited evidence of efficacy and safety, as well as appropriate dosing for the drug, its place in the therapy or prevention remains uncertain at this point. So that's the background. Let me then jump to the evidence that they reviewed, because I think it's important to just, show the evidence that they reviewed in coming up with this. The evidence review, they say there is insufficient evidence at this stage to support the routine use of ivermectin for either prevention or treatment of COVID-19. As noted by SAPRA on the 6th of January 2021, the overall quality of randomized controlled clinical trials of ivermectin in the treatment of COVID-19 patients is poor, and existing trials are underpowered and poorly designed. This includes the evidence provided by the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. That evidence is also, that evidence is also being assessed by the team commissioned by the ACT-A, Hill et al., and the final report of the systematic review and meta-analysis is expected to be released, in the week of the 11th of Jan 2021, which is the week that we've just passed. SAPRA has indicated that it would welcome and fast-track an application for the randomized control trial. The rapid review of the available evidence conducted by the National Essential Medicines List Committee, COVID-19 subcommittee, which relied on the existing living, review of the COVID NMA, suggested that ivermectin not be used for the treatment of patients with COVID-19, as the evidence of efficacy and safety is uncertain at this point. Nonetheless, the NEMLC COVID-19 subcommittee is actively reviewing all available evidence and will continue to review emerging evidence from clinical trials that are ongoing. As of December 2020, there are 37 trials registered on the clinicaltrials.gov. So the recommendations then from the Ministerial Advisory Committee is that until more robust evidence is available, the routine use of ivermectin for either prevention or treatment of COVID-19 is not justified. All right, emerging evidence must be actively sought and carefully reviewed. Reports of clinical trials of ivermectin for the prevention or treatment of COVID-19 must be closely watched as they become available. As always, reports in peer-reviewed publications will be preferred. Effective messaging needs to be developed to communicate both the general public and to health professionals that the use of this unregulated product purporting to contain ivermectin is risky and unethical at this stage. Unregulated distribution channels are at the risk of introduction of substandard and falsified products, which can be dangerous to human health. So that's really the view from the Ministerial Advisory Committee. and it's signed by Professor Salim S. Abdul Karim, who is the co-chairperson of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19. So I thought I needed to just read all of that in detail so that people are aware as to the position of the people who advise the minister. The minister obviously has, oversight over SAPRA, but also, for people to know that it is not just, based on one person feeling that they are not in agreement, but it's actually a team of credible scientists in our country who have reviewed all available data, locally and beyond this country.
All right. Thank you for that, Doug. So another question would be,
can you raise your voice? I'm not sure if our viewers can hear you properly.
Okay, all right. So yesterday afternoon on News 24, they reported that 2 patients who have taken the Ivermectin drug have landed in ICU due to an overdose. So are doctors allowed to prescribe this medication to their patients, assuming they have received it from their treating doctors?
Well, in the report that I read for you, the memo that was actually written by the advisory committee to the minister, it is clear on their recommendation that the drug has not been licensed for use to either prevent or to treat COVID-19 in human beings in South Africa. All right, so that is the point. Use of that drug to treat patients with COVID-19 or to prevent COVID-19 is therefore, seen as something that, is unethical at this point. And so, obviously, if the treatment was prescribed by medical doctors that led those 2 patients, to be admitted in hospital, then they have a lot to answer for, because, prescription and use of that drug is not allowed with the available evidence at this point.
Okay, Doc. So this past week, a man who is not a healthcare professional was arrested at King Shaka International Airport. He was coming from Dubai. So he was seen carrying supplies of the Ivermectin drug, which is currently banned from human use, as you just said. So it seems the supply was destined for the black market. So now, how safe or dangerous is the use of medicine sold at the black market?
All right. Yes, you are right, Nwabisa. There was a gentleman who was arrested, and when they searched him, they did find a supply of this drug, ivermectin, in his luggage. Obviously, that person was not somebody who is in the business of importing, drugs. Clearly, that medicine or those medicines were not going to be, sold, in the normal, markets. It was going to be sold, in the informal markets. We are aware that, or at least I am aware that there's a lot of people who are actually, selling this drug in the informal market. Now, the danger of, using any medication from informal markets is that, one, you don't have any guarantee that what is in those drugs is actually what is purported to be in those drugs. You don't have any guarantee that the dosages that are in those drugs are actually the dosages that are supposed to be in those drugs. But also, in some situations, there are unscrupulous manufacturers who may add other things that are not supposed to be within that particular, drug formulation, which may actually cause harm to one's health. So generally, I normally advise, people to avoid buying medication from, sources that are not, formal sources, registered sources, because you have no recourse should anything happen after you've taken that medication. You really don't have any recourse. Even the manufacturer of that drug, you can't really take them on because you did not, get that medication from, the right, channels of distribution and retailing of that particular medication.
Right. Thank you for that, Doc. So now, Doc, what is SAHPRA's role and their plan on the ivermectin drug?
Well, I think I've already answered that. As the regulatory authority of health products, their role is basically to get applications from those who manufacture the medicines, provide, go through all the scientific evidence that proves the effectiveness and the safety of those medications, and then decide on, whether to license or not, and if they do license, what conditions, they need to actually, put as part of the licensing. So that is their role.
Okay.
They're supposed to be neutral, not be swayed by anything else, but hardcore scientific evidence that points to clear benefits of use of a particular medication, and more importantly, issues of safety. So already with the story from Peter Marisbeck, one is already then, dealing, or seeing that use of medications, that are not licensed, may actually cause harm to the health of the people. I pray that they survive and nothing, happens to them. But it just highlights the fact that when you use medications that are not licensed, because in South Africa, the medication ivermectin is licensed for animal use. And so there is no clear dosage for a human being to say, use this much for so long and all of that. So chances of overdosing yourself are quite high because there are no clear guidelines in terms of, the dosages. So it is really something that people should avoid doing, to not just about ivermectin, any drug out there. It's important to know that you are using a licensed drug with clear dosages and other guidelines. Knowing what side effects are there, when you take the drug, because before you take the drug, you must be aware of the side effects. Because if you are not aware of the side effects, it is my duty as a doctor to try and make my patients that I give treatment to be aware of the side effects. Let me just tell you some of the side effects of ivermectin. Some of the side effects may be, skin rash, that is somebody who's reacting to the drug. Because it's taken orally, it may cause nausea, it may cause vomiting, it may cause diarrhea, it may cause stomach pains, it may cause facial or limb swelling. It may also cause neurologic adverse effects like dizziness, seizures, confusion. It may cause sudden drop in blood pressure. It may cause severe skin rashes that may require hospitalization. It may cause hepatitis, that is, inflammation of the liver. And lab tests that have been done on people who have used ivermectin have actually shown that in some instances, it does cause a drop in the number of white blood cells, that is our soldiers, that help us fight germs. And sometimes it causes, a rise in the enzymes of the liver, which is evidence of the irritation or inflammation of the liver, which is why then ivermectin use for prevention and treatment in COVID-19 should be avoided because the benefits and issues of safety have not been conclusively, established, in spite of the many clinical trials that are, underway and the few that have already been concluded.
Thank you for that, Doc. All right. So now, Doc, who should be applying for their drugs to be licensed for human use in South Africa?
Well, I think I've already mentioned that, the company that manufactures the drug should be the ones who apply. And what is odd in this case around this ivermectin is that whilst, doctor groupings, are putting pressure on the government, on SAPRA, to actually, consider emergency licensing of this drug. But the actual company that produces the drug, to my knowledge, has not as yet submitted an application to SAPRA for consideration, but SAPRA has considered, the appeal from, other, third parties, but not necessarily from the manufacturers. So yeah, it's one of those things that we need to wait and see. We also need to see the evidence as it is coming through and see, what SAPRA is saying about that new evidence. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really around protecting the general public from adverse effects of a drug that's not yet proven in terms of safety and effectiveness. And if there is enough evidence that can then be able to sway the opinion of South African Health Products Regulation Authority, then, we may be talking something different. But for now, I think it's important to be cautious, and not encourage people. But that is not stopping individuals to buy this drug in the, black market. But then, obviously, those people who are doing so, they are doing so at their own, risk, and there's nothing that can be done. But I think for doctors to be actually going against the authorities, I think that then brings a lot of question marks around issues of ethics. We all sign, the Hippocratic Oath, and there we say we will not administer anything that has got a potential to do harm, or basically the principle of do no harm. So when I, as a doctor, give medicines to somebody, I don't know the extent of side effects that this person may, suffer from what I've given them. In a way, I'm a bit negligent, in what I'm doing. So, but obviously, people feel so strongly that we are in a pandemic, and in a pandemic, certain things, we need to shorten certain processes and try and save lives. But my worry is, in trying to save lives, we should be careful of not giving people things that may actually shorten their lives.
Okay, thank you for that, Doc.
Are there any questions that have come from other people, though?
No, there are no questions.
On Facebook?
No, Doc, there are no questions from Facebook, or none from Facebook and YouTube.
All right. Okay, you can look at other questions. I just want to check on Facebook as well to see if there's anything that maybe for some reason has not come through to you. So just give me a second.
Okay.
All right. There are some comments which I'm unable to view here. Okay. Some comments which I'm unable to view here. All right. No, there are no comments as yet. Let's broaden our topic. Remember, I said we will start with the issue of ivermectin as a drug, because it's something that's topical. It's something that a lot of people are reading about. It's something that a lot of people are also, listening and seeing in the news, radio, and TV. So it was important that we start with that. But there are many other questions that people have about COVID-19 as a pandemic. So maybe this is the time that again they can ask any question. I'll try. I'm a family physician by training, and as a family physician, my role is to be able to handle and manage patients that present with common health challenges across the different disciplines of medicine. All right. So, that means I need to be able to read and be knowledgeable, across different things, even when it comes to COVID-19. I don't claim to be an expert in COVID-19. However, on common issues relating to COVID-19, I think I'm sufficiently, knowledgeable to be able to answer, questions from the general public. I may not be able to answer deep technical questions that are coming from my colleagues, but questions from the general public, I think I can be able, to answer. So if there are any questions coming through or any questions, that you had already prepared, I'm prepared to entertain them.
Okay, Doc. So the first question would be, does the prolonged use of medical masks cause carbon dioxide intoxication or oxygen deficiency?
All right, can you repeat the question?
Okay, so does the prolonged use of medical masks cause a carbon dioxide intoxication or oxygen deficiency?
All right, thank you for that question. This is one of the very common questions that have been, posed by people within social media. There's been people who are purporting to be experts on matters of, respiration, in human beings. People who have been claiming that prolonged use of medical masks, does cause carbon dioxide intoxication or oxygen deficiency. So the answer is prolonged use of medical masks, when properly worn, do not cause any accumulation or intoxication, through high levels of carbon dioxide or any oxygen deficiency. All right. The prolonged use of medical masks can be uncomfortable. However, it does not lead to carbon dioxide intoxication nor oxygen deficiency. While wearing a medical mask, make sure it fits properly and that it is tight enough to allow you to breathe normally. It's important not to reuse a disposable mask and always change it as soon as it gets damp. Medical masks, also known as surgical masks, are flat and pleated. They are affixed to the head with straps and have ear loops. So basically the answer to your question, and this is an answer I got just from the WHO side, because WHO is always looking within the social media platforms common questions that are coming from the public, and then they are compiling a Q&A to say these are the facts, these are the myths, and this is one of those myths that are out there, that prolonged use of medical masks can lead to carbon dioxide intoxication and oxygen deficiency. I hope I've answered enough. Yeah, Vagal.
Yes, Doc. Thank you so much. So the second question is, does exposing yourself to the sun or temperatures higher than 25 degrees Celsius protect you from COVID-19?
Right, can you repeat the question?
Does exposing yourself to the sun or temperatures higher than 25 degrees Celsius protect you from COVID-19?
Right, thank you for that question. In the early days of this COVID-19 pandemic, there were a lot of claims. There were a lot of claims out there that COVID-19 thrives in cold environments, because at the time there was already a lot of people were infected, in Europe and or in the northern hemisphere, Europe, the US, and other parts of the world. And people felt it was maybe because of the fact that they were in their winter season. And there was this belief then that once it becomes summer, things will change. And so a lot of people believed that that would be the case. But the truth is, it did not really change when summer came. Countries like the US have continued to have high numbers of COVID-19 infections, even during their summer. In fact, some countries in Europe, they had to bring back, lockdown regulations, during their summer. Spain, France, and countries like those. So, that is just in general. But to answer your question specifically, like what we see here in South Africa now, we have our second wave in the middle of our summer. So exposing oneself to the sun or temperatures higher than 25 does not protect one from COVID-19. All right? You can catch COVID-19 no matter how sunny or hot the weather is. Countries with hot weather have reported cases of COVID-19. To protect yourself, make sure you clean your hands frequently and thoroughly, avoid touching your eyes, mouth, and the nose, and wear the mask all the time. All right? Just exposing yourself to the sun may not help you to avoid COVID-19. If anything, you may actually expose yourself to damage by the UV rays, which can be actually damaging to skin, especially for people with lighter skins. But even if you've got a skin that's got a lot of pigment, melanin pigment, you can still have the damage from the UV rays of the sun. So the answer is very clear. There is no protection.
Okay, thank you for that, Doc. Another question is
there any question from the line?
No.
Okay.
No questions. So another question, Doc, is does drinking methanol, ethanol, or bleach prevent or cure COVID-19?
All right. Can you please repeat that question?
Okay. Does drinking methanol, ethanol, or bleach prevent or cure COVID-19?
This question reminds me of, again, some of the myths that were circulating in social media, where some people, because of the fact that we are using sanitizers with 60 to 70% concentrations of alcohol, so people then believed, so if these sanitizers with high levels of or high concentrations of alcohol are actually able to kill the germ, then maybe if they consume alcohol, it will also have the same effect of killing the SARS-CoV-2 germ that causes COVID-19 disease. Now, the answer is very clear. Drinking methanol or ethanol, or bleach, does not prevent or cure COVID-19. If anything, that can actually be dangerous. I also remember that the outgoing president, of the United States, Donald Trump, actually also, one day, said, if people use bleach, that can actually, cure, COVID-19. But his advisors and spokespeople quickly came in and said, look, the president was mistaken. There is nothing like that. So that's the answer. Drinking methanol, ethanol, or bleach has got no impact at all in terms of either prevention or curing people with COVID-19 disease.
Okay, thank you for that, Doc. So does taking vitamin or mineral supplements cure COVID-19?
Does taking
vitamins or mineral supplements cure COVID-19?
All right. Again, we are aware, I'm sure all of us who are in social media, that firstly, there is no cure for COVID-19 as we speak. Now, when there is a germ that attacks a human being, we rely on our immune system to actually destroy the germ. Okay? But also, as medical people, if there is treatment that's available that has been shown to kill the germ, we then, prescribe those medicines to try and help our bodies by killing the germ. In the case, of HIV, we have medications as the medical people that we can prescribe that have been demonstrated that they can kill the retroviral germ, all right, HIV germ. So there's always two sides then. There is the side of the immune system that a person has, and the side of, specific treatments that can kill the germ. So it's always good for people to have a strong immune system, all right? And there are various components that make up the immune system. If your immune system is weak, obviously it makes it easy for germs to actually overwhelm your immune system and cause you to have severe illness or even, cause death. Now, but your question was specific. If a person takes vitamin supplements, and I know of a lot of people who are taking Bico, people who are taking vitamin C, vitamin D, and other mineral supplements. That may have a benefit in strengthening their immune system, but that does not have any direct benefit in terms of killing the SARS-CoV-2 germ, whether we're talking of the original strain or even this, new strain of COVID-19. It just helps to, augment or strengthen to some extent your immune system, but it does not have any ability to actually eradicate the germ SARS-CoV-2 in your body.
All right, thank you for that, Doc. So does rinsing your nose with saline prevent COVID-19?
Does rinsing one's nose
with saline prevent COVID-19?
All right. This is another common question that people, because again, we know that most people, they get infected by the SARS-CoV-2 germ through, inhaling the germ via their noses or through their mouths. So because of that, some people had a theory that if you frequently, rinse your nose with saline, that is water that has got salt, okay? I'm just trying to simplify that word saline. Water, that has got salt, high level of salt, that would help to cleanse the upper nasal passages of the COVID-19 germ. Now, the answer is that rinsing your nose with saline does not prevent COVID-19 infections. There isn't any evidence that regularly rinsing the nose with saline has protected people from being infected with the SARS-CoV-2 germ. There is, however, limited evidence that regularly rinsing the nose with saline can help people recover more quickly from common cold. However, regularly rinsing the nose has not been shown to prevent respiratory infections in general. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Doc, thank you. So another question is, does taking the vaccine against pneumonia protect against COVID-19 virus?
Does getting the vaccine?
Yeah, the vaccine against pneumonia protects against the COVID-19 virus.
Okay, right. There is a very common germ that causes pneumonia in South Africa, but also the rest of the world. It's a streptococcus germ. We call it pneumococcus. Okay. Now, it's a very common germ that causes pneumonia. Now, there is a vaccine against that particular germ, pneumococcus vaccine. So people can actually go and get that vaccine to prevent pneumonia, especially those who have got health problems, like respiratory problems or heart problems. We normally encourage them to have this vaccine. Okay. Now, as far as COVID-19 is concerned, that vaccine has got no ability to prevent COVID-19. Whilst it's effective in preventing pneumococcus, pneumonia, all right, which is a bacterial pneumonia, it has no effect at all on preventing COVID-19 disease and its complication, COVID-19 pneumonia. However, for people with comorbid disorders, people with weak immunity, there is a benefit in having that vaccine so that should they get infected with COVID-19, well, SARS-CoV-2 germ, they don't have to deal with that and pneumococcus as well. So that's where the benefit is, but it does not prevent COVID-19, as a disease.
Okay, thank you, Doc. So does eating garlic prevent COVID-19?
All right. That question reminds me of debates that used to happen here in South Africa at the height of the HIV and AIDS denialism in South Africa. There were prominent people who felt that if people eat garlic, pepper, and things like those, that would help. That would help in actually curing HIV. So, as you are asking that question, it also reminds me that this past week or so, I saw in the social media platforms people who had put a meme that was saying, people used to ridicule the Minister of Health those days when she was promoting garlic and beetroot and all of those kind of things. Yet now it is the very people who are actually encouraging people to use garlic and beetroot and things like those. Back to your question. Eating garlic does not prevent COVID-19. Eating beetroot does not prevent COVID-19. Putting pepper in your food does not prevent COVID-19. But having said that, garlic is a healthy food. that may have some antimicrobial properties. So it's got some properties, that help the body to deal with germs. But those properties are not strong enough to actually, kill, germs. So there is no evidence from the current outbreak that eating garlic has protected people from the new coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, so that is the answer.
Okay, Doc, thank you. So now, Doc, since we always have our temperatures checked at every shop we enter, even at work, so do these thermal scanners detect COVID-19?
All right. Well, I wonder what exactly they detect actually, because some of them, they are all designed to detect raises in the body temperature. But what I've experienced to date is that even in that purpose that they were designed to actually detect, they are not good. You find temperatures of 30 degrees and 32 degrees and all of that, and that's not normal. And normal body temperature is somewhere around 36.5 up to around 37.4. All right, so they are supposed to detect raise in body temperature 38 degrees and above, so that if you are 38 degrees and above, then you are not allowed in those premises. I know of a colleague who actually was very angry because she tested, she was tested with these thermoscans and they found her to have a 33 degrees Celsius temperature. And the security guard, who was somebody who comes from the Eastern Cape, then went on and to tell this colleague of ours, "Yo, Sisi, we are banned," Now, when you just say something like that, "Hey, Sisi, we are banned," it can have many meanings, beyond just the meaning that your temperature reading as at this point is actually low. It meant something else, and that doctor was not pleased. But to answer your question, thermoscans have got no ability to detect the SARS-CoV-2 infection. All right. The only thing that they can detect is whether a person has got fever or not. And fever here, we're talking of raised body temperature. Now, I know from my home province in the Eastern Cape, we use the word fever very loosely. In fact, I think it's the only part of South Africa where people, when they've got common cold or flu, they refer to it that I was sick, I had fever, meaning common cold, meaning flu. But fever is really a raise in body temperature, irrespective of the cause. But anyway, so thermal scans or scanners are supposed to detect a raise in body temperature, abnormal body temperature, which is called fever. And yes, somebody with COVID-19 may have a raised body temperature, but that does not mean it diagnoses that raised body temperature is as a result of COVID-19. Further tests need to be done, like the one that is done where we insert something in one's nose, get a swab, send it to the lab, which is called a PCR test, where they extract the germ and then do another further test to actually see if there are parts of the germ within that which has been extracted in that PCR test. So only the PCR test really can help one to diagnose COVID-19 infection. There are some tests we call rapid tests that use antibodies, that check for antibodies against COVID-19. Those are used for screening purposes, but to diagnose a person, we rely on the PCR test. So the thermoscans cannot be used to diagnose anybody with COVID-19.
All right, thank you, Doc. We have a question that just came in from YouTube. Makabongwe Mvengu is asking, what are the benefits of steaming and or ukufuta in general for the respiratory system?
Okay. Benefits of steaming or ukufuta. Well, since this pandemic started, and the fact that we do not, as the medical people, have, a cure. People have been trying different things to try and stay healthy. We've already mentioned the issue of people stocking on multivitamins and other micronutrients as a way to try and strengthen their bodies. We've already spoken here about nasal lavage, which is the irrigation of the nasal passages, with saline, with the hope that it will prevent COVID-19. We are also aware that a number of people use products, natural products, and steam with some of these natural products. All right. One of those natural products is umhlonyane. All right. Artemisia afra. All right. Umhlonyane, which is slightly different from the umhlonyane from Madagascar, which is called Artemisia annua. So here in South Africa, we've got Artemisia afra umhlonyane. We grew up, most of us, with grandparents who believed, who swore on umhlonyane. They would always have herbal gardens, where should you have a rise in temperature, because of common cold or even flu, they would go and grab umhlonyane there, boil it, and give you, to drink, or they would make a preparation for one to steam. The belief is that, those natural products like umhlonyane, like eucalyptus and others, which are natural, products that you get in herbal plants. The belief is that they've got some anti-inflammatory, properties. So when you inhale the steam that has got these, these ingredients, then it will help to actually, cause the nasal passages and also, the passages that bring air to the lungs up to the lungs themselves. So there is that belief. I am not aware, though, of scientific studies that have conclusively proven that steaming as a practice using umhlonyane, eucalyptus, and other, herbal extracts actually has, the benefit that is claimed. But, in the absence of anything, that is, curing, and with the steaming process, not necessarily, a process that's dangerous, I would not oppose any of my family members, from steaming. What I worry about is when we have to ingest, preparations from these herbal, preparations, which at times may cause the same thing we saw with ivermectin, where you find that there may be, adverse effects that may affect one's liver, that may affect one's, kidneys, and things like that. So I know I've said a lot of things. At this moment, there has been no proven, scientifically proven evidence that steaming, using herbal extracts is actually beneficial. But, as medical people, we also use in nebulizers, when people have got asthma, and other conditions, and those, they deliver the chemical directly to, the lining of the respiratory system, and the active chemicals that are proven, to be anti-inflammatory, or actually bronchodilators, meaning they open up the airways, then we use that. But as far as the steaming question that has been asked, that's the answer I can give.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. There's one more question. Does water or swimming transmit the COVID-19 virus?
Does water
or swimming transmit the COVID-19 virus?
Sure. Okay. Let me just, just apply my mind a little bit. Look, again, there hasn't been any evidence that COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 germ can be, transmitted through water whilst people are swimming. All right. The virus, SARS-CoV-2 virus, does spread between people, through, droplet spread, and in some instances, it can be airborne. But through water, there isn't any evidence of that as yet. So I wouldn't really worry. But over and above that, in a pool, you've got chemicals, within the pool that are put there to actually, like chlorine, to try and, kill, most germs, so at this point, there is no evidence. And so I wouldn't really be worried that my kids who are swimming in a pool, unless they are close to each other, which is why the guidelines from some parts of the world, as far as public swimming pools are concerned, they put emphasis more on the number of people who are using a swimming facility, a reduction of that number, allowing for that distance of about 1 meter to 1.5 meters between people, so that if any of them sneezes or coughs while swimming, they do not transmit the virus to the next person in an airborne fashion or droplet spread, but not about the water itself. So it's really about the distance that people occupy whilst swimming. Obviously, you can't be using a mask when you are swimming. So social distancing, is very important during swimming.
All right. Thank you for that. The last one is, can people of all ages get infected by the COVID-19 virus?
Yeah. There is no, one thing I used to say in the early days when I was doing awareness programs around COVID-19, I used to say, this is one virus that's very democratic. There is no age where a person, cannot get infected by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, no age. What people confused was the fact that, especially with the first wave, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, amongst younger people, even if they got infected, it did not, get to a point where they had clinical illness, or get them, to be admitted for severe COVID-19 disease. But that did not mean the younger people were not infected. So all age groups can be infected, but the younger people tended to be, more asymptomatic when they get infected than the older people, which is why up until around October, November, when one looked at the numbers of people who were infected with COVID-19, people under the ages of 19 tended to form less than 2% of the total population of people who had been diagnosed with COVID-19, because most younger people did not even have symptoms that made them to get to a health facility where they could be diagnosed. But that must not be confused with the fact that it does not cause infection amongst them. Now, in the second wave, we are seeing a virus, we are seeing a variant of that SARS-CoV-2 virus, which since the late September and certainly October has grown to be the dominant variant that is causing this infection. What we are seeing with that one is that unlike the earlier version or the earlier variant, we are seeing more younger people. We are seeing more people with no comorbidities actually presenting with symptomatic COVID-19 disease. So further, even younger people, we are seeing, when I say younger people, under the ages of 10, we are seeing them, getting infected and presenting with symptomatic illness. So it is a democratic virus. No age group is spared, but the severity, still depends on a number of factors. But the new variant actually presents, even amongst younger people. So they are forming a bigger percentage of people who are diagnosed with COVID-19 compared with what we saw during, the first wave of the COVID-19 disease.
Thank you for that, Doc. So we don't have any more questions. We only have a compliment from Facebook written by Wendy Bloom.
Yeah.
She says, great show, guys, covering and busting so many myths that are being transmitted on social media. You rock. Thank you for being such team players.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Yes, she's one of my Facebook friends. And yes, that positive feedback is very welcome. I think, we need to encourage people to ask the questions, and I'm happy, for people to ask any questions. And by the way, I am not the person who will be, who will just answer something that I do not know. If I don't know, I will tell you I don't know, but I'll surely come back with an answer. So I'm encouraging people that when we have these Ask Dr. Fundi, broadcasts, please, they must come through. No question is a stupid question. We are all learning. It's a new virus. We've only known it for less than 14 months. So there is still so much more to learn about it. And so any question is welcome. And I will never make anybody feel, that their question is in any way, stupid or whatever. So thank you to everybody who joined us. The next Ask Dr. Fundi is likely to be in vernacular. I'm still trying to decide which, language I must use. Should it be Sipedi? Should it be Chivenda? Should it be Xhosa? Should it be Zulu? But yeah, we are going to sit down and look at, which vernacular language, because again, not everybody is comfortable to engage, in the Queen's language. But we will advise people in time what language we will use. and if it is Chivenda or if it is Sipedi, I will endeavor to find a doctor who is competent in the command of that language. I've done it before, and I think I will call on the same doctors to actually be part of that Ask Dr. Fundi. They will be augmenting me, but because my command of those languages is not very good, I don't want to answer things and confuse people in the process. So I want to thank you, everybody who have joined us. We appreciate you, and we will continue to try and address whatever we pick up that is a common issue and people want clarity about on the social media channels. Thank you, and thank you to you, Nwambisa, for making time to support me today. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you as well, Doc, for having me.
Lovely. Thank you.